Hello, my name is Anjani, and this is a quick video about your triggers and when you get triggered, how you can use that as a method for moving energy. So, if you imagine your physical body being surrounded by light and different layers of energy, um, just look at that as, like a big container of you. And within that container of you, experiences that happen, a lot of times it's from past experiences. There's fragments of light that got condensed and compact, or sometimes I just will refer to it as material. So some material got lodged in a place in that field around you, or in your physical body. Not that really there's really no difference between that. So anyway, that material gets kind of lodged in there, embedded somewhere. And we have that, generally, even when you're doing energy work, you're doing healing with yourself, you're, watching your nutrition intake, doing your yoga, doing your breathing, even when you're doing all that, there's still things hiding in your field. Some of it is from the past, and when you're doing a lot of work, there's less things because you've been working on it. But every day we're eating food, every day we're hearing new information, we're seeing new information, we're taking new information in through our senses, and our digestion of that material is always going. So okay, so then when something happens in your life, in the external world, not that there is an external and internal, it's really just your own cognition and perception. When something happens and you feel it, you see it, you somehow have a sensory input that triggers, it'll hit a point in you, stuff that's already there, and you have a reaction. There's something that happens in your emotions, in your thought process. Sometimes the physical body will actually feel stuff. And this is a great opportunity to work with that. I feel like our initial reaction, just from our conditioning, is to get really mad at whoever triggered us and to blame it on them. You're a narcissist, you're an a-hole, or our initial reaction is to go out. And a lot of times that's appropriate, like it's all appropriate. I mean to say that a lot of times it is valid. A lot of times those people who come know how to push those buttons. They know just where to touch. That's going to make you have that. Not that they're making you do anything, but so instead of doing that, which might be part of the conditioned response, I remember when I first started doing this was 2007, and was it, no, 2005. I was getting divorced, and in our communication with me and my husband, that would happen all the time. And I was like, okay, so next time this comes and I feel it, I'm going to just do this exercise, which I'm going to share with you now, which I still do, and it still works. It's evolved over the years, of course. But basically what happens is that when you get that, whatever the thing is, I'll just give an example of the last time I got triggered. I was so grateful because it had been a really long time before I'd gotten a good trigger. So I walked into a party, and it was like a daytime pool party for a baby shower, and a really good friend, somebody who I love a lot, said, "Oh, hey, it's Anjani. This is the way he introduced me was, this is Eduardo's baby's mama." And I was like, "What?" And I got all sorts of triggered. And so for the rest of the party, I was just sitting there, like, feeling what I felt. And of course, I did match my mental. I went through the whole thing, and actually it continued on until that night, and I went to sleep. And when I woke up in the morning, that's when I was like, oh my gosh, I had a massive breakthrough in a situation that has been a long time conflict for me. So basically, what you're going to do is when you get that trigger, whatever it is, you're just going to sort of breathe, breathe it in. Take in what they said and or whatever happened, whatever the visual stimulus was. My trigger used to be one of my big triggers used to be watching anything on TV that had to do with taking away somebody else's power. So, oh my gosh, those movies of people whipping the slaves, that would just hurt me so much. And there was a lot of information in that for me, and being triggered that way. Or watching kids be abused, or watching somebody being sexually violated. Those things, but there was a lot of things I had to work with from my own past traumas that helped me to be able to, first of all, understand. And we don't always need to understand why that trigger exists. We don't always need to understand, like the thing with the slaves being beaten. There was no actual, like, I've never been a black woman on a plantation being beaten in this lifetime. But that energy of not being able to control, being in control of your own self, that's prevalent. And also, I have no idea really. I mean, I've had some intuitions about past lives in Egypt, and but more in my past life recollections or memories, or intuitions or visions, whatever you want to call that. It's been more like I've been a badass, like Nefertiti type of strong woman. So basically, what I'm saying is that you don't need to know where the trigger came from. It doesn't matter. If it's like, oh, yeah, well, I was abused, and so that makes sense. It doesn't have to make sense. If something that you experience triggers you and you have no idea why it's triggering you, you don't need to know why. It's actually, I feel like it's easier when you don't know why, because then it's really easy just to sit with what you feel in your body without attaching a mental story to it. So the reason it took me all day and even until the next morning to process what I got triggered with the whole baby mama comment, was because my mind was working a lot. Like, and so I was able to feel what I was feeling, but then I would make a mental, like, oh, and it was a lot of stories, but I feel like that needed to be churned out for me. It helped me a lot. So if you can focus mostly on the feeling without attaching a mental story to it. In tantric philosophy, there is no separation between mind and heart, or from the mind and the emotions. That they are, they call it one thing, So the mind heart, the heart mind. There's a Sanskrit word for it, but it's really hard. It starts with an H, and it's hard for me to say, so I'll type it out. But basically, if you can, just next time you get the trigger, I like to close my eyes because it helps me not to take in more sensory material with my eyes. So I close my eyes and start to focus on my breathing. So letting my breath become more normalized and more equal. And then just really feel where that hit happened. So, I'm because a lot of times things are in my chest and in my upper belly. This is a place where I'll notice more things, actually. Not that there's more things there, it's just where I'll notice things more. So I'll actually bring my awareness into that space, meaning that I'm sort of focusing that lens of awareness and perception that I have into that spot, and just be with it, bringing my energy in. So be with it to me basically means bringing all of me, gathering all of me in and pointing it down into where I feel the sensations. And then sort of breathing and allowing that sensation space and time to do whatever it needs to do. So breathing, allowing it, looking at it, asking it questions, becoming very curious about it. Just like if there was the analogy that works for me a lot is a small child or a pet or something that you love and it's innocent and you by nature are inclined to honor its needs. So do that same thing for yourself with this sensation awareness where you're just going to give it that same amount of honor and respect that you would if it was a little baby crying and you're like, oh, and you pick it up and are you okay? And you give it all of your attention and allow it to speak and have its own expression. So this process can go on for 5 minutes. I think 5 minutes is a good cap out, like, okay, if it hasn't dissipated and it's not to say that it needs to have a dissipation because it doesn't. Sometimes what needs to happen is that it's telling you to get up and, break up with that boyfriend or to go sit down with that boyfriend and tell him like, so whatever it is, whatever the sensation in your body doesn't always need to dissipate. Sometimes it wants you to take an action, and that sensation won't dissipate sometimes until you do take that action. So it might be as simple as like, why don't you just go take a bath, take a hot bath, and then you get in the bath and more starts to open, and you're just following the energy and you're listening to it and you're honoring it. The thing you don't want to do is bite back on the person who triggered you because they actually are the messenger, and the messenger is bringing you a gift in so many ways, because a lot of people won't be willing to push that button because they especially we're trained to be nice to each other and comfort and console each other. And so anyway, don't shoot the messenger. Listen to the energy, follow the energy. Sometimes it will just dissipate. Sometimes it doesn't have it. It is just an old trauma that, I fell down when I was little. Dad and mom told me don't cry. Or, for me and my database is like, I got my feelings hurt when I was little and they were like, why are you so sensitive? Don't, you're so moody and you're, all this. And so I would repress that and try to act normal, even though I felt something sad or mad or, embarrassed. I was always getting embarrassed and covering my mouth. And so for me, sometimes it'll be those kinds of things where I'll get triggered and I'll feel it and I follow that energy and I let it move and I let it do whatever it's going to do, and it does just dissipate because there's nothing in it for me. There's nothing for me to do with it except for to honor that. And I don't have to grab it and like, look at what you guys did to me. There's no point in doing that for me and from my perspective. There was at one point in my life where I did go through all of that material, and I was having really bad anxiety and depression and panic attacks. And I did write a long letter to my parents and told them my experience and expressed to them, just what happened, like from my perspective, how was my childhood. And that opened up a conversation between me and my mother and me and my father, and things got really beautiful in those relationships from me being able to do that. And I'm not saying that you have to or anything like that, but a lot of times the energy just wants to be acknowledged. So I cut my finger in a same place that I had got cut when I was a little kid. And when I was a little kid, the way that it was handled, it was fine. We were on our way to Hawaii, so this was a big inconvenience because it was like 6 days or something before we were going to go to Hawaii. So it got more like, it was an inconvenience. So when I cut my finger this time, I was like, it was not a serious cut, but it was directly over that old wound. And I called my clients and was like, I'm not coming into work today. I have this cut. It really hurt. I was having all this emotional things happening. And I never, I mean, absolutely never call into work unless, even if one of my kids is sick, I will still go see a client because it's just an hour or 90 minutes and I'll come back and take care of the child. But I will never call in. But for this, I did. And it was really like honoring, we always have another chance to reconfigure energy patterns and to look at those energy patterns. So anyway, thank you so much. I'm in the middle of my workout and I just wanted to share this because we're having this big full moon in the sign of Leo and Aquarius, and so much stuff is being opened up. And the word trigger just keeps coming in. Like, people are getting triggered and having emotional breakdowns and freaking out, and even joy. Sometimes joy can be trapped in our body because we didn't let ourselves fully experience that joy or that orgasm, or that sometimes it's a beautiful, good thing that, not that there's good and bad, but one of those like super pleasurable experiences that we didn't fully digest, and that's trapped in our body. So working out every morning, I have these, because I'm moving my tissue, and those things open up and I'm able to see them, and I'm like, wow. So with this eclipse happening and the full moon, and then we have Mercury going retrograde this month, there's so much potential opportunity for being triggered. So use that as an opportunity for self-exploration, self-love, and don't shoot the messenger. The messenger is actually a gift from God or from whatever you relate to as some higher intelligence. That messenger is really a gift. So thank you so much for watching this video. I'm all sweaty and messy. I don't really care at all. Please leave any comments, or I always like to interact with people. So yeah, I look forward to connecting with you soon.